Adrian loved making fun of my stutter at every family dinner. He'd bang his fist going GGG got promoted until everyone laughed. At his wedding, he took the mic for his big 25-minute speech and started with Brittany and I first met at ACCC. My cousin Adrian was the golden boy of our family. Perfect tea, perfect job, perfect everything. But he had this one habit that made every family gathering pure hell for me. He loved mocking my stutter. I've had it since I was 7. Got hit by a car riding my bike. Traumatic brain injury. Then 3 months relearning how to talk. Most days, it's barely noticeable. But when I'm nervous, when I'm put on the side, the words get stuck like cars in a traffic jam. Adrian figured this out real quick. Christmas dinner, 2019. I'm trying to tell my aunt about my new job. IGG got promoted to GGG got promoted. Adrian shouts across the table, machine gunning the sound while pounding his fist. The whole room goes quiet. Sorry, couldn't help myself. Hey everyone, remember when he tried to order pizza last year? CC, can I have a LLL large? The delivery guy hung up. He wasn't even there when I ordered that pizza. I never told anyone about it, but everyone laughed. Even my mom gave this week little chuckle. Probably just to keep the peace. Adrian's mom, my Aunt Linda, actually wiped hairs from her eyes. She was laughing so hard. Oh Adrian, you're terrible, she said. But you could tell she was proud of her comedian son. Thanksgiving 2020 was worth. Adrian brought props. I kid you not, this 30-year-old man brought a buzzer to dinner. Every time I tried to speak, he'd hit it. Sorry, time's up. Next contestant. My girlfriend dumped me 2 weeks later. Said she couldn't handle the family dynamic. By Easter 2021, he'd recruited others. His little brother started doing it too. Then their dad got soon. Half the table was stuttering mockingly whenever I opened my mouth. Adrian had created a whole bit where he'd pretend to be a translator. What Tommy's trying to say, he'd announce, even when I hadn't stuttered at all, is that he's grateful for this meal. It only took him 5 minutes to get the words out, but we're patient people. The worst part, he was smart about it. Never did it when my dad was around. Dad would have knocked his teeth out. Only when it was mostly Adrian's side of the family. And he always played it off as just joking around or bringing levity to family tension. 4th of July 2021. We're at my uncle's lake house. I'm telling my 10-year-old cousin about fireflies when Adrian appears with a beer in each hand. Tommy's giving a science lesson. He announces to nobody, someone get this kid a speech therapist for his birthday. My little cousin looked confused, then started laughing when all the adults did. That's when something inside me snapped. Not angry snap, something colder. I watched Adrian slam his 4th beer. Watched him command the crowd with his perfect delivery and timing. Watched everyone hang on his every word. Adrian lived for attention. Craved it like oxygen. His wedding speech at his brother's wedding went for 25 minutes. Every story, every joke, every toast. Adrian had to be the star. And that's when I knew exactly what I was going to do. Labor Day weekend, Adrian announced his engagement to Brittany. Basic girl. Obsessed with Pinterest. Constantly filming everything for her 200 Instagram followers. She thought Adrian was God's gift to comedy. The wedding would be next September. And Adrian was already bragging about his vows. I'm writing them myself. He told everyone at Thanksgiving. None of that traditional crap. I'm gonna have everyone crying from laughter. Brittany loves when I do my impressions. That's great. I said smoothly. No stutter. I've been practicing with a speech therapist for months. Adrian looked disappointed. Yeah, well, he pivoted. At least I won't need cue cards like someone would. There it was, old people. But I just smiled. Because I've been doing more than speech therapy. I've been studying Adrian like a final exam. His speech patterns, his breathing, the way he rushed through sentences when he was excited, how he never paused between thoughts. Most importantly, I studied his drinking habit. Beer made him louder. Whiskey made him meaner. But champagne made him nervous. I also made friends with his groomsman, Tyler, who happened to be a bartender. Tyler thought Adrian was in a hole too. Apparently, Adrian had made fun of Tyler's dyslexia all through high school. We bonded over Adrian's stories at a sports bar one night. He's got this weird thing about his wedding speech. Tyler told me after his third shot, practices it every day. Has it on his phone. Makes Brittany listen to it constantly. She's sick of it, but won't say anything. By spring, I had everything I needed. The wedding was in for months. Adrian had no idea that his perfect day was about to become a highlights reel he'd never lived down. And the best part, he was going to do it all to himself. The engagement party was my first real test. Tyler had gotten me on the catering crew for the event at Adrian's parents' house. I spent the morning arranging champagne flutes while Adrian held court in the living room, retelling the proposal story for the 12th time. I watched him work the room, noting how he touched his throat when he got excited, how his words started running together after his second drink. Brittany floated around, showing off her ring while her mom filmed everything. Adrian's mom, Linda, was in full hostess mode, making sure everyone knew her son had planned this whole party himself. Around noon, I made my move. Tyler had shown me Adrian's phone password weeks ago. While everyone gathered for toast, I slid into the kitchen where Adrian had left his phone charging. My hands shook as I opened his notes app and found the wedding speech draft. 23 minutes of material, just like his brother's wedding. I scrolled through, memorizing the rhythm, the callback, the pauses for laughter he'd marked. Then I heard footsteps. Adrian appeared in the doorway, champagne glass in hand. My thumb hit the home button just as he spotted me near his phone. His eyes narrowed. For a second, neither of us moved. Then he smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Lost, Tommy? He took a step closer, or just admiring my phone case. I held up the dish towel I grabbed, just cleaning up. Catering duty. He studied me, taking a slow sip of champagne. I noticed his hand trembled slightly. Funny, I don't remember you ever working catering before. Needed the extra money, I said, keeping my voice steady. No stutter. The months of practice were paying off. Adrian's smile widened. Extra money. Right. He picked up his phone, checking it. I held my breath, but he just pocketed it. You know what I think, cousin? I think you're up to something. Like what? Don't know yet. He stepped closer. I could smell the champagne on his breath. But I'm watching you. This is my day, my year. And if you think you're going to pull some stunt, Adrian. Brittany's voice carried from the living room. They're waiting for your toast. He held my gaze another moment. We're not done, he said quietly, then headed back to his party. I leaned against the counter, heart hammering. He knew something was off, but he didn't know what. And that uncertainty would eat at him. The next few weeks, Adrian turned into a detective. At every family gathering, he watched me. When I helped clear plates at Sunday dinner, he followed. When I chatted with Tyler at my cousin's birthday party, Adrian inserted himself into the conversation. So Tyler, Adrian said during one of these ambushes, you and Tommy seem pretty chummy lately, bonding over your reading problems. He laughed at his own joke, but his eyes stayed sharp, watching for reactions. Tyler just shrugged. We grab beers sometimes. That a crime? Depends what you talk about, Adrian said. I started using Adrian's paranoia against him. At family events, I'd make sure he caught me whispering to relatives, then stop when he approached. I'd check my phone and smile mysteriously when he was watching. Once I left a wedding planning magazine on my car seat, where he'd see it through the window. The effect was immediate. Adrian started drinking more at gatherings. That his jokes got meaner, more desperate. He'd interrupt conversations to demand to know what people were discussing. Brittany started apologizing for him. He's just stressed about the wedding, she told my aunt at Easter dinner. While Adrian grilled my teenage cousin about why she'd been texting during his story. By May, Adrian had become his own worst enemy. He accused his brother of trying to upstage his wedding. He made his groomsmen swear loyalty oaths at his bachelor party planning meeting. Tyler told me Adrian had started making them practice their entrances, terrified someone would steal his spotlight. I kept practicing with my speech therapist, but now I practice something else too. In the mirror each night, I rehearsed looking concerned, confused, innocent. I practiced my reaction for when everything went wrong. Memorial Day weekend, we had a family barbecue. Adrian cornered me by the garage while everyone else played cornhole. I know what you're doing, he said. His breath was hot with beer and paranoia. What am I doing, Adrian? You're planning something for my wedding. He grabbed my shirt. Whatever it is, drop it. This is the most important day of my life. Brittany deserves perfect. I deserve perfect. I let him see a flash of something in my eyes. Not quite guilt, not quite defiance, just enough to feed his paranoia. I don't know what you're talking about. He shoved me against the garage door. I swear to God, Tommy, if you try anything. Adrian, my dad's voice cut through the yard. He stood by the grill, spatula in hand, watching us. Problem, Adrian let go, straightening his shirt. No problem, just catching up with my favorite cousin. He patted my shoulder hard enough to hurt. Right, Tommy? After he left, I touched the tender spot on my shoulder and smiled. 3 months until the wedding. I wonder what Adrian's really afraid of here. He's turning into his own worst enemy with all this paranoia about Tommy's revenge plan. There's something fascinating about watching him spiral just from Tommy's subtle mind games. Adrian was already cracking, and I hadn't even done anything yet. That night, Tyler texted me, dude's losing it. Made us practice the groomsmen dance 6 times today. Accused me of trying to sabotage his moves. I stared at the message, thinking about Adrian's wild eyes by the garage, the way his hands shook, the desperation in his voice when he talked about deserving perfect. For a moment, I felt something like guilt. Then I remembered Christmas 2019, the buzzer at Thanksgiving, my little cousin's confused face at the lake house, the girlfriend who couldn't handle the family dynamic. I texted Tyler back, good, let him sweat. June arrived with a heat wave and wedding shower invitation. Adrian had insisted on a couple's shower, probably to maximize his audience. I watched him at the party, noting how he flinched whenever someone clinked a glass unexpectedly, how he counted the gift twice, suspicious someone might steal them. Brittany's mom pulled me aside during cake cutting. Is Adrian alright? Brittany says he's been having nightmares about the wedding. I arranged my face into concern. Wedding stress, probably. He just wants everything perfect for Brittany. She nodded, but looked unconvinced. Across the room, Adrian was interrogating the DJ about the playlist, convinced someone had requested songs to throw off his entrance timing. By July, Adrian's paranoia had infected the whole wedding party. He'd made them sign contracts about their behavior at the wedding. No impromptu speeches, no surprise performances, no deviations from the schedule he'd laminated and distributed. Tyler showed me his copy at a bar one night. Look at this minute-by-minute breakdown. He's got my bathroom break scheduled. I studied the timeline. Adrian's speech was blocked for 8:47 p.m., 25 minutes, just like he'd promised. The centerpiece of the reception, right after dinner. But before dancing, prime attention, real estate. He's been practicing in the mirror. Tyler continued. Brittany told her sister she's heard it so many times she could recite it herself. Something about their first date at mini golf and a metaphor about putting practice in marriage. I filed that information away. The more Adrian practiced, the more dependent he'd become on his rhythm, on his timing, on everything being exactly as he'd rehearsed. August hit like a hammer. 1 month to the wedding, Adrian's calls to vendors tripled. He made Brittany's bridesmaids practice their walks until one of them quit. He hired security for the gift table, convinced someone would sabotage the cards. At the rehearsal dinner planning meeting, I volunteered to help coordinate vendors. Adrian's eyes nearly bulged out of his head. Absolutely not, he said before I'd even finished offering. Come on, Aunt Linda said. Tommy's trying to help. It's sweet. I said no. Adrian's voice cracked. He cleared his throat. Tried again. I've got it handled. Everything's under control. But it wasn't. I could see it in the way he kept touching his phone, checking his speech note, the way he snapped at Brittany for suggesting they could cut the speech to 20 minutes, the way he started carrying printed copies of the speech everywhere, terrified of losing it. 2 weeks before the wedding, everything accelerated. Adrian demanded loyalty oaths from family members. He tried to ban me from the wedding entirely, but Brittany's parents threatened to pull their funding if he excluded family without cause. He hasn't done anything. Brittany pleaded with him at a family dinner I heard about later. You're being paranoid. Adrian had laughed. High and strange. changed. I'm being careful. This is our day. Britt got our perfect day. Tyler told me Adrian had started sleeping with the speech under his pillow. He'd caught him practicing in the bathroom at 3 a.m., whispering to his reflection. 1 week out, Adrian cracked. He called me at midnight, hammered and rambling. I know you're planning something. He slurred. But guess what? I'm ready. Got contingencies. Backup plans. You can't touch me, Tommy. Can't touch this. I stayed silent, letting him rant out to 5 minutes. He continued. 25 minutes of gold. Brittany cries every time at the mini golf cart. Every time. You're gonna sit there and watch everyone love me. Watch them laugh. Watch them toast to me. Adrian, I said calmly. I just want you to have a nice wedding. He laughed, ugly and sharp. Sure you do. Sure you do. CC cousin. The mockery was half-hearted, like he'd forgotten why he was supposed to hate me. 3 days before the wedding, I met Tyler for final preparation. He looked nervous, kept checking over his shoulder. I don't know about this, man. He's completely lost it. Made us do a full dress rehearsal yesterday. Twice. Screamed at the photographer for being in his light. Cold feet. I asked. Tyler shook his head. It's just ... What if this breaks him? Like actually breaks him? I thought about it. Really thought about it. Adrian, for all his cruelty, was still family. Still the kid who taught me to skip rocks at the lake before the accident. Before everything changed. Then I remembered the buzzer. The translator bit. The way he'd recruited others to mock me. The systematic cruelty delivered with a smile. He'll be fine. I told Tyler. Embarrassed, sure, but fine. Tyler didn't look convinced, but he nodded. We went over the plan one more time. Simple, really elegant in its simplicity. Adrian would destroy himself, and all we had to do was create the right conditions. The night before the wedding, I couldn't sleep. I kept running through scenarios, backup plans, contingencies. Adrian had been right about one thing. I was planning something, but not what he expected. Not some grand sabotage or dramatic scene. No. What I had planned was much simpler, much more devastating. I thought about Adrian, probably lying awake too, clutching his speech notes, practicing for the 100th time, the 1,000th, banking everything on those 25 minutes of glory. Tomorrow, September 18th, Adrian would take the microphone at 8:47 p.m. exactly. He'd be riding high on attention and alcohol, ready to deliver the performance of his lifetime, ready to be the star he'd always believed himself to be, and I'd be there, sitting at table 12 with the cousins and +1, watching that, waiting, not for revenge exactly, for justice, for balance, for the moment when Adrian would finally understand what it felt like when words wouldn't come. The wedding day dawned perfect and clear. I dressed carefully in the morning, choosing the charcoal suit Adrian had mocked at his brother's wedding. My hands were steady as I adjusted my tie. No tremor, no hesitation. The months of preparation had led to this moment. The ceremony was scheduled for 2 o'clock at St. Mary's, the same church where Adrian had served as altar boy and perfected his public speaking. I arrived early with the other groomsmen, watching Adrian pace the vestry like a caged animal. He kept checking his phone, muttering his vows under his breath, then checking again. Tyler caught my eye and shook his head slightly. Adrian had made him swear on his mother's life that nothing would go wrong. The other groomsmen looked exhausted from Adrian's demand. One had a bruise on his shin from where Adrian had kicked him during yesterday's final rehearsal for standing in the wrong spot. During the ceremony, I stood with the other cousin, watching Adrian's hands shake as he held Brittany's. He stumbled over his vows twice, his eyes darting to me each time. The traditional vows he'd mocked were giving him trouble. His perfectionism was already working against him. The reception venue was Adrian's pride, a restored mansion he'd spent months electing. Every detail had been orchestrated, from the ivory linens to the string quartet. I helped elderly relatives find their seats while Adrian supervised the head table arrangement, making the wedding party switch places 3 times. By 5 o'clock, cocktail hour was in full swing. Adrian had limited himself to 1 beer, saving his tolerance for the champagne toast. I watched him patrol the room, straightening centerpieces and adjusting the microphone stand. He'd already snapped at the DJ twice for deviating from his playlist. Tyler found me by the bar, his bow tie already loosened. He told me Adrian had made the groomsmen practice their entrance for more times that morning. One of them had threatened to leave, but Adrian's brother talked him down. The tension was spreading through the wedding party like a virus. During dinner, I sat at my assigned table, making small talk with distant cousins. Adrian kept glancing over, his jaw tight. He barely touched his food, too focused on reviewing his speech card. Brittany tried to get his attention, but he waved her off, mouthing the words to himself. At 7:30, the best man gave his toast not short, sweet, respectful. Adrian nodded approvingly, then checked his watch. 1 hour and 17 minutes until his moment. He excused himself from the head table, and I watched him disappear toward the bathroom, speech cards in hand. This was my opportunity. I slipped out through the side door and made my way to Adrian's car in the parking lot. Tyler had given me the spare key weeks ago. Inside the glove compartment, I found what I was looking for. Adrian's backup speech, laminated and perfect. I left it exactly where it was, but added something else. A small bottle of champagne, the expensive kind Adrian loved, with a note, for courage, your groomsmen, back inside. The father-daughter dance was ending. Adrian had returned to the head table. His face flushed, he kept touching his jacket pocket where his speech cards were, then checking his phone, then touching his pocket again. The DJ announced the mother-son dance. And Adrian moved mechanically through the steps with Aunt Linda. 8:15 arrived like a countdown. Adrian's checking his speech cards like they're winning lottery ticket, while his bride tries to get his attention. Nothing says true love quite like ignoring your new wife for index cards with mini golf metaphors written on them. Adrian started drinking champagne faster, accepting every toast offered. His brothers tried to slow him down, but he brushed them off. He'd planned this moment for months. Nothing would stop him. Tyler appeared at my elbow during the cake cutting. He told me Adrian had just downed 3 glasses in 10 minutes. The groomsmen were getting worried. Adrian's hands were shaking again, but not from nerves, from anticipation. From the need to be perfect, 8.3 Adrian stood abruptly, knocking over his water glass. He didn't notice his eyes were bright, focused on the microphone stand. The DJ wasn't ready yet, still queuing up the spotlight. But Adrian was already moving. Brittany reached for his hand, but he pulled away. I watched him stride across the dance floor, speech cards clutched in his sweaty palm. His brothers exchanged glances. His mother started to stand, then sat back down. Everyone could feel something building, like pressure before a storm. 8.40 Adrian tapped the microphone, sending feedback screeching through the speakers. Half the room went. He didn't apologize, just waited for silence. His breathing was audible through the sound system. Quick and shallow. He looked down at his card, then up at the crowd. Then down again. 8.43 Adrian cleared his throat. Once, twice, 3 times. He took a sip of water. Then champagne. Then water again. The room grew restless. Someone's baby started crying. Adrian's eye twitched. 8.45 he began to speak, but his voice cracked. He stopped, touched his throat, tried again. The words came out rushed, tumbling over each other. He was speaking too fast, trying to make up for lost time. The carefully rehearsed pauses were gone. 8.46 Adrian fumbled his card. They scattered across the floor like white leaves. He dropped to his knees, scrambling to collect them. The microphone picked up his panic breathing. Someone in the back laughed nervously. Adrian's head snapped up, searching for the sword. 8.47 exactly. Adrian stood. Cars reshuffled wrong, sweat beading on his forehead. He grabbed the microphone with both hands and started his speech from the middle. Something about mini golf. Then jumped to the ending. Then back to the beginning. His voice rose higher with each fumbled transition. The room grew uncomfortable. Brittany's smile became fake. The photographer lowered his camera. Adrian's mother covered her mouth with her napkin, but Adrian pressed on. His words accelerating into incomprehensible and cbility. And it happened. The moment I'd been waiting for. Adrian's voice caught on a word. Brittany and I first met at ACC. He stopped. His eyes went wide. He tried again. At a CC coffee. The stutter hit him like a physical blow. The irony was perfect. All those years of mocking my speech impediment, and here was Adrian, center stage, struggling with the very thing he'd weaponized against me. But this wasn't my doing. This was Adrian's perfectionism. His nerves, his desperate need for attention colliding with his worst fear. He tried to push through. Our FF first date. The champagne wasn't helping. The pressure wasn't helping. The hundreds of eyes watching weren't helping. Adrian's carefully constructed persona was crumbling in real time. Someone in the audience shifted uncomfortably. A tear scraped. Adrian's brother started to stand, maybe to help, but their father pulled him back down. This was Adrian's moment. He demanded it, planned it, obsessed over it. IWW wanted to tell you all. Adrian's voice broke completely. He set down the microphone and fled the room, leaving confused silence in his wake. Brittany sat frozen at the head table, her mascara starting to run. The DJ, professional that he was, quickly started the first dance music, but the damage was done. Adrian's perfect moment had become his perfect humiliation, and I hadn't had to do anything except create the conditions for his own nature to destroy him. Tyler found me on the terrace 20 minutes later. Adrian had locked himself in the bridal suite. Brittany was with him, trying to coax him out. The reception continued awkwardly without them, guests dancing to fill the silence. I felt no satisfaction, no victory, just a hollow sense of completion. Adrian had finally experienced what I'd lived with for years: the frustration, the humiliation, the desperate desire to speak while your body betrayed you. The rest of the reception passed in a blur. Adrian never returned. Brittany came down briefly to thank guests for coming, her smile brave but brittle. The groomsmen handled the final toast. The cake went uncut. By 10 o'clock, people were leaving in awkward clusters. I helped Aunt Linda pack up the gift table. She looked older somehow, diminished. Her golden boy had tarnished himself in front of everyone who mattered to him. She caught my arm as I carried boxes to her car. She asked if I knew what had happened. I told her Adrian had been under a lot of pressure. She nodded, but her eyes were knowing. Maybe she'd always known what Adrian was. Maybe she'd just chosen not to see it. The next morning, my phone buzzed with messages. The wedding was all anyone could talk about, but not in the way Adrian had wanted. No one mentioned his perfect venue or his custom vows. They only talked about the speech, the breakdown, the way he'd fled his own reception. Tyler texted that Adrian and Brittany had left for their honeymoon without saying goodbye to anyone. The groomsmen had found Adrian's speech card scattered on the bridal suite floor, torn into pieces. His phone was in the trash. Screen cracked. A week passed, then family gatherings happened without Adrian. His chair sat empty at Sunday dinner. His mother made excuses, work trips, prior commitment, but everyone knew he was hiding. The golden boy who'd lived for attention now couldn't bear to be seen. I continued my speech therapy. The exercises felt different now, less desperate. My stutter was still there, would always be there, but it no longer defined me. It was just part of who I was, like brown eyes or left-handedness. A characteristic, not a weakness. 3 weeks after the wedding, Brittany called. She wanted to meet for coffee. I found her at a small cafe downtown. No makeup, hair in a ponytail. She looked tired, but somehow more real than I'd ever seen her. She told me Adrian had spent the entire honeymoon obsessing over the speech, playing it over in his mind, trying to figure out what went wrong. He'd blamed the champagne, the timing, the microphone, everyone but himself. Then she said something that surprised me. She knew about the mockery. Had always known. She'd watched Adrian imitate my stutter. Had felt uncomfortable, but never spoke up. She apologized for her silence, for choosing comfort over conscience. I accepted her apology, but offered none of my own. What happened to Adrian was his own doing. His need for perfection, his cruelty, his inability to see others as fully human. It had all culminated in that moment at the microphone. Brittany told me they were in counseling. Adrian was learning things about himself he'd never wanted to examine. The therapist had suggested he might have always feared stuttering himself, that his mockery came from a place of deep insecurity, that he'd attacked in others what he feared in himself. The autumn arrived with its usual family obligations. Thanksgiving loomed like a test. Would Adrian show? Would he return to his old ways? Or had that night changed him permanently? I prepared myself for any possibility. My speech therapist helped me practice scenarios. What if Adrian apologized? What if he attacked? What if he pretended nothing had happened? I was ready for anything. The week before Thanksgiving, my mother called. Adrian would be there. He'd specifically asked if I was coming. She sounded nervous, worried about conflict. I assured her everything would be fine. And I meant it. I arrived at my aunt's house early, helping with food preparation. The familiar kitchen felt different somehow, less charged with dread. Other relatives trickled in, everyone carefully avoiding mention of the wedding. Adrian arrived just before dinner. He looked smaller somehow, or maybe I was just seeing him clearly for the first time. Brittany was with him, holding his hand. They took seats at the far end of the table, away from his usual spot at the center. The meal progressed quietly. Adrian didn't hold court, didn't interrupt, didn't perform. He ate in silence, occasionally murmuring to Brittany. When someone told a story, he listened without trying to top it. When there was laughter, he smiled without demanding to be the cause. After dinner, I was helping clear plates when Adrian approached. We stood in the kitchen, surrounded by the debris of another family gathering. He opened his mouth, closed it, tried again. For a moment, I thought he might utter. Instead, he simply said he was sorry. Not a performance, not a speech, just 2 words. Heavy with everything he couldn't articulate. I nodded, accepting what he could offer. We didn't hug, didn't shake hands, just stood there in the kitchen. 2 cousins who traveled a long road to a simple moment of recognition. The evening continued without incident. Adrian left early with Brittany, citing an early morning, but not before helping with dishes, something he'd never done before. Small changes. Human changes, the kind that actually matter. I drove home thinking about cycles. How cruelty breeds cruelty, how pain seeks expression, how sometimes the only way to break a pattern is to let someone experience their own medicine, not through revenge, but through truth. Adrian had built his identity on the ability to speak perfectly. To command attention through words. When that was taken away, even briefly, he'd faced the vulnerability he'd mocked in others. And in that vulnerability, perhaps, was the beginning of empathy. The holidays passed. Adrian remained quiet at family gatherings. Adrian's champagne strategy really backfired. Turns out liquid courage doesn't mix well with public speaking. Who would have guessed? Poor guy scattered those speech cards like he was dealing poker at the world's most awkward casino. He and Brittany seemed closer, bonded perhaps by surviving his public humiliation together. He never mocked anyone's speech again, never brought props to dinner, never demanded to be the center of attention. By spring, a new dynamic had emerged. Adrian and I could exist in the same space without tension. We weren't friends, would never be close, but the war was over. He'd learned what it felt like to have words fail you. I'd learned what it felt like to watch someone face their own cruelty. Neither of us spoke about the wedding. It had become family lore, mentioned in whispers when Adrian wasn't around. But between us, it needed no discussion. The message had been delivered. The lesson learned. The score settled. I sometimes wondered if Adrian ever figured out my role in his breakdown. The planted champagne, the psychological warfare, the way I'd used his own perfectionism against him. But it didn't matter. What mattered was the result. At Easter dinner, Adrian's little brother started to mock a cousin's list. Adrian shut him down immediately, his voice sharp with new understanding. The table went quiet, surprised by his intervention. But I wasn't surprised. People can change. Sometimes it just takes experiencing their own medicine. I continued with my speech therapy, not to fix something broken, but to strengthen something that was already whole. My stutter would always be part of me, but it no longer defined my worth or limited my voice. I'd found my power not in perfect speech, but in perfect timing. The wedding video, I heard, was never edited. It sat on a hard drive somewhere, containing Adrian's moment of truth. But the real record was written in changed behavior, in small kindnesses, in the absence of cruelty. In the quiet recognition that we all have our struggles, our imperfections, our moments when words won't come. That summer, I gave a presentation at work. My stutter emerged during the introduction, as it sometimes did, but I pushed through, letting it be part of my rhythm, rather than fighting against it. Afterward, a colleague complimented my authenticity, said it made me more relatable, more human. I thought about Adrian then, how he'd spent so much energy trying to appear perfect, how that need for perfection had become his downfall, how in trying to be more than human, he'd revealed himself as deeply, lawfully human after all. The cycle was broken, not through grand gestures or dramatic confrontations, but through a simple truth. We all struggle with words sometimes. We all have moments when our bodies betray us, when our carefully constructed personas crack. The difference is in how we treat others when they face those moments. Adrian had learned that lesson the hard way, in front of 200 wedding guests, with a microphone in his hand and champagne in his blood, with his perfect speech scattered at his feet and his voice breaking on the simplest word. It was poetic justice. It was necessary education. It was the end of one story and the beginning of another. A story where former bullies could grow, where victims could find strength, where families could heal imperfectly, but genuinely. The wedding day that dawned perfect and clear had ended in disaster and transformation. And sometimes that's exactly what needs to happen. Sometimes the only way forward is through the complete destruction of what came before. Sometimes the greatest gift you can give someone is the chance to experience their own medicine, even if it takes years of planning, even if it means becoming someone darker than you want it to be, even if it leaves you feeling hollow afterward. Because in the end, the point isn't revenge, it's revelation. It's forcing someone to see themselves clearly, perhaps for the first time, Adrian saw himself that night. In his stuttering, stumbling attempt at perfection, he finally understood what he'd put others through. And in that understanding, however painful, was the seed of redemption. The possibility of becoming better. The chance to break the cycle. Time to wrap up this little commentary adventure, folks. Appreciate you letting me toss in my 2 cents here and there. Until our paths cross again. Subscribe for more content like this.